Quindi, il prossimo talk sarà di Rubens Souza a proposito di taking care of PostgreSQL with Ansible. Thank you.
Grazie. Grazie a tutti per venire. Prima di iniziare volevo dire che questo talk è stato pensato in inglese e le slide sono tutte in inglese, però aveva successo un flyer, si dice che è in italiano. Può essere in italiano, in inglese? Tutti capiscono italiano e capiscono inglese, no? Ok. Quindi facciamo un mix, però I'll try to do in English. Però facciamo così, alla fine le domande si può fare in italiano. Io non sarei in grado di capire nulla, però se tentano, va bene. Ok. So, imagine you have this situation. You have to install a master, a database master, and create the database, create the different clients and users. You have to configure a backup server as well, and to install and configure a standby server. And to try to do some configuration between the backup server and the standby server. I know this is excited, right? I know a lot of people here that is going to like to do this the same as me. But there is a catch. What's the catch? You had to do this in 5 or 50 or maybe 500 servers. So now you're not that happy. If you are in this situation, you know that you have two options now. You have the old option, the old way of doing, so you open a lot of terminals, and this just means one thing, it's going to be bloody and it's going to be a war. Or you have a new and more peaceful and clever option, that's automation. And you can do this with Ansible. Thank you everybody for coming. My name is Rubens Souza. I work at Second Quadrant. I'm a Postgre consultant. Second Quadrant is a company that specializes in everything with Postgres support and education. And we are a 100% open source company. We have an office here closer to Firenze, the city of Prato. And this is my contacts, that GitHub. All the playbooks that we are using, that GitHub if you want to check. And if you want to go put anything on the social media, you can use that. Oh my, okay. Sorry. Okay, when we talk about Ansible, Ansible is a configuration management software. And when we talk about configuration management, we are talking about controlling and managing changes of status. We have a lot of tools to do that. Some of the tools, many of them are here. This is not a new solution. As you can see here, one of the first tools that was created to do that was CF Engine, was in 1993. Today, most of these tools, they are active. Some of them, they are a little not that active, but you can find and use all of them. And for all of those, these are the most famous on these four. Or usually you're going to use Puppet or Chef, Salt for Salt Stack, or Ansible. Anyone here has Puppet, for example, in production? Ansible. Anyone uses any configuration management tool in production? You use, I know you use. Some good informations. The first of these four is Puppet. Puppet it was one of the first ones that started to bring this configuration management to normal people, and was first released in 2005. The new one, you have SaltStack and Ansible. Curiously, the first two, that's Puppet and Chef, they are with Ruby, and SaltStack and Ansible with Python. You can understand why they changed this, because Python is installed in every computer, so they start to put all this configuration management through Python. It's easier now to do that. The difference between them, the three of them, they are with master and agent, the configuration. So you need a server, you need a configuration server, and you need some software installed in the client as well to have this talking to each other. Ansible is the only one that is agentless. You don't have a master and you don't have a client. You just have, with your laptop you can do everything. You don't have to install anything in a server. And another interesting point, you can see here, this is the number of stars in each GitHub of any project. All of them, they are open source, so you can go to GitHub and you can check. I know these numbers sometimes they cannot mean anything, but in a way it's funny because Puppet is, I don't know, 10 years already and had 4,000 people, and Ansible is from 2012 and 16,000 people there. This gets a kind of reflex of the size of the community. It says something, and they're going to see later why. And why it's so popular now? This is a normal evolution of technology, mostly because of virtualization and cloud solutions, and containers as well. I think some of you maybe has some personal servers installed on DigitalOcean or even Amazon, and you have many moving parts. So if you have to control all the servers, all the configuration by yourself with shell scripts or something, and you don't have a configuration management, it's crazy. So most of us normally are having problems that before we didn't have, and we are trying to find solutions. So one of the solutions is this configuration management. If we have all of these options, why to choose Ansible? Some characteristics. As I said, Ansible is serverless and agentless, so you don't have any agents or minions that take care of the job. I know that everybody loves minions, but sometimes they're not that nice. You don't have to have a centralized server or database installed in the server. You don't have to have software installed specifically in your client just to do this configuration. You don't have to install anything there. And because of that, you don't have any crazy dependencies. It's just SSH and Python. That's it. And SSH and Python, you have this in most computers already. One of the important points with Ansible, you don't have to know a language to use Ansible. It's just YAML. YAML is just a normal file that you can read and treat its configuration as data. It's not as a code. So you don't have to learn, for example, with Puppet, you have to learn a little of Ruby, and a little I'm being too nice. With Ansible, you don't have that. The difference is this. If you are using YAML, is the difference between declarative and imperative. It's the difference between know what has to be done or how has to be done. You don't care about the how has to be done. You just want to have that state in the end configured, and you know that this is going to be done, that's it. It's like taking a bus. You take a bus, you know that's going to be in the last stop. You don't want to know all the ways that the bus is going to be. And this has another reflex in the learning curve. You don't have to read all of this, but this is a blog article from a company they call is Lyft. They have an application that takes care of rides and transportation. It's a really nice app. And they had most of the structure of them was with Puppet. They were having problems with Puppet because all the new developers have to learn Puppet, and they are going to take a long time to learn Puppet. So they start to see some options that they have. They start to compare Puppet, Ansible, and Salt. And in the end, they open to Ansible. The interesting here is this. We had 1,000 lines in Puppet, and they did everything in 1,000 only Ansible. So 10,000 compared to 1,000 lines. This article you can read is really interesting to check some differences. And they move everything to Ansible now. Ansible is really extendable. You have a lot of modules. We are going to learn what's modules later. You can create your own modules, and you can write modules in any language you want. And part of modules, you can extend with shell commands, normal shell commands, and you can use even scripts if you have a script and you don't want to change your script to an Ansible playbook, you can call your script for an Ansible playbook. Security is SSH. We always use SSH. You know that's secure by itself. You have the option to use sudo as well. And encrypted vault is a part of Ansible. So if you have passwords or some information that you have is critical information, you can use the Ansible vault. You don't need to have a private key infrastructure installed. You can use it, but you don't have to use, because using SSH and sudo in the vault, everything is secured already. And the community. This Ansible Galaxy is a public repo, a repository. You can create your playbooks or the roles. You can upload there. You can go there and download for everybody and check to learn or to see if someone has done a solution for you already. So this Ansible Galaxy is really nice. You can go to see that every day you have more roles there. Here I make a comparison. I try to do a simple installation from a Fusion web server. Usually I use an Nginx, but I had this script done already. So it's just to compare. Doing the same thing manually by the terminal, or with a shell script, or with an Ansible playbook. So you can do whatever you want. It's just to make a comparison. This is manually. You go to the terminal, you put every command, so the GPG keys, you enter the repositories, change the rights in the files, you do everything, and in the end, is everything work, but manually. The same thing if you create a script. It's better than do manually because it's there. You can version control, and the file is always there. You can change anything here, but you have to call it, and the script is going to be run. You have the same thing in an Ansible playbook. So if none of you have seen already, this is a YAML file. So we are doing the same thing. We are calling the hosts. The host is the computer that is going to be controlled. In this case, I wanted to do in all of them. We are going to see where we can control these computers. And we have tasks. The task is just a name and what we're going to do. This is a module, as this one, as this one. Every module does a task. And the task, you can say the state that you want and some information about the task. So we are doing the same thing as the script. Ansible is just this. You can read this as a YAML file. You can read this and understand without knowing Ruby or without knowing Python. You can, without a problem, read this and understand and change it. And in the end, it's not only how you do it. We have these interesting questions here. If you compare the methods, you have to know which of these methods is better to have a version control. Which of these methods you can run and be sure that it's going to be safely always the same result in the end. Which of these methods you can run in as many servers as you want. Some good questions, and different questions as well. We are going to cover all of them during the talk, but some of these points cover all the things that you can do with configuration management. This here is not specific only to Ansible. You can do this with Puppet as well, with Chef, with Salt. The point is, if you don't have a configuration management already installed, try to use this as a solution. Continue doing the terminal manually or with shell scripts is not a clever way of working. So it doesn't matter if you choose Ansible, do this in a controlled way. So everybody when talk about Ansible, they just say Ansible is just automation. It's better if you understand what's automation to have a clear idea about what is done with this. Automation actually is a mix of 4 areas. One of the areas is change management. Change management is just take care, if you want to change a state of something that you want, you can control the changes, when you want to do it and how you want to do it. So this is just a change management. The important point here is achieving idempotence or idempotence. It's a fancy word that means, this comes from mathematical. It's just an operation that doesn't matter how many times you run this operation, it's going to be the same result. So if you have a playbook, you know that every time that you run the playbook, the state that you say in the playbook is always going to be the same. It's just going to change if you want to change it. We have provision. Provision is just if you have one state and want to change to another state. For example, you have a normal server, Linux server, and you wanted to provide this server to become a database server. So this is provision. You change the state of some tasks, of some operations, it's going to become a database server. We have as well automation, that's the core of Ansible. Automation is just if you define tasks to be done automatically, that's it. But usually automation is just in a single server. So when I want to do changes ad hoc and just a single server, this is automation. And finally, like this, for your computer or laptop, you change the state in a server or in a node. Finally, orchestration. Orchestration is automation, but in many servers. So this image gives a good idea. It's just you automate all the tasks that you want, but in many computers. How does Ansible work? Now we're going to see some core functionality of Ansible. To install Ansible, as I said, the system requirement is just SSH and Python. This is working? No. Yeah, okay. To have installed in the control machine, you have to have Python 2.6 or 2.7. It doesn't work with Python 3 yet. They are porting to Python 3, so it's just Python 2. Today, we cannot use a computer that has Windows to be the control server. Just Linux or Mac. It has to be a Unix. In the computer that's going to be managed, the nodes that are going to change the state, you have to have at least Python 2.4. If you have Python 2.4, make sure that you have simple JSON installed or any other Python, not 3 as well. And in the computer that's managed, you can have Windows installed, but it works through remote PowerShell. So in the computer that controls, no Windows. In the controlled computer, you can have Windows installed there. How can we install? You can install via the OS Package Manager. You can download from Git, or you can do pip as well. The installation, I think you can see here. This is an example for install in Debian. Just making sure you have Python installed. I made an installation here from pip. So just pip install Ansible. That's it. And here we have a demo, I think. Yeah. So I did this in a virtual machine with Debian installed. It's just normal apt-get. Of course, everything run as root. So just install Python dev and setup tools. The installation goes normally. You usually don't have to do this. Python is installed already there. I just did this because this is a clean machine. When the installation is done, it just is install pip. Pip is going to be installed normally. And by pip, you install Ansible. If any of you has installed any other configuration management tool, it's not that easy to install. You have to install a lot of libraries and a lot of technology. They depend on one another. And in the end, you can see that you put the Ansible version, you can have Ansible there. Now I'm doing with Ansible 2. Was the last version, so the installation is done. And you have to do this in the machine that you are being the master in this case, the machine that controls the other ones. You don't have to install Ansible in the other machine that are going to be controlled. This is in my laptop. That's it. Here are the key components of Ansible. Okay, some names here, we are going to use them all the time when we talk about Ansible. The inventory file is where you have all the hosts, all the computers that I'm going to change the state on them. It's just a normal file that I list the computers that I have there. Modules are piece of code that I'm going to use during the tasks to do some operation in these computers. The playbooks is everything, is the file that calls everything together. So the tasks, the modules, the plays, the variables, everything goes inside of the playbook. And inside the playbook, we have the plays. So the playbook is just a list of plays. And inside of the plays, I don't know if you can read there, you have tasks. So plays have tasks, and playbooks have plays. That's it. I put here the Ansible configuration file. It's just a configuration file that you say some things that you want to change in the way that Ansible is going to work. You can have the configuration file in every project that you have. You have a main configuration file, but if you have a configuration file inside of the directory that are going to call the playbook, this playbook is going to run following the configuration that is inside of this configuration file in that directory. So you can say, for example, in how many parallel computers you want to do to operate that task, for example. I put Python framework here because this is the Python language. It's not part of Ansible, but all of these components, they are going to go through Python. It's going to make a kind of package through Python and go into the computers through SSH. And it's going to operate all this configuration that you have done with different components inside of the computers. That's the way, is the flow that Ansible uses. A part of this, you have as well variables, templates, and roles are concepts that are going to talk later. So this is most of the things we use in Ansible. The inventory file. This, I don't know if you can see. Sorry. This is an inventory file. This is a normal text file. Can have any extension. Usually is a .ini. And what I have here, we have groups. So this is just a group. Inside of the group, I have the name of the hosts, and I can use variables inside of this this file, this host file. For example, I put an alias here, db01, the IP address of this host, and I created some variables. For example, the role of this db is a master, the other one are replicas, and they are talking in these ports. But these variables, I created these variables. And I have different groups, web server. You can create groups of groups. So I have a group here that's my cluster. Inside of this group, these two groups before. So if I call one task to be done in a host, I can do this by host, I can do this by groups, or I can do this by groups of groups. So if I run any task in my cluster, it's going to run in all the hosts inside of this group and this group. And here I have some other variables that is going to be for all of the hosts inside here. So I can have variables for everybody, or I can have variables just for one another host. Okay? And the inventory file, this is just an example. You send the playbook, they are going to use this DB server playbook just for the host that I want them to apply. So I can, without a problem, send some tasks with specific hosts that they're specified inside of the inventory file. Any questions so far? Okay. The modules is one of the important parts of Ansible. Without a module, we cannot do anything, actually. Module is a code that is going to perform the task you want in the host. So we have modules for everything. If you go to this page with Ansible, you can have a list of all the modules you have. And some of the modules I listed here, for example, for package management, you have for apt, yum, most of them are here. Source control as Git, or commands like shell commands, or just simple commands. You have many different modules. If you want to do operation a task and you don't have a module created for you, we can create a module as well. Because you can create a module with any language. A task. A task is just a normal operation. And this is an example of a task. I have a name here for the task. I can give any name. I'm using a module here, the apt module. This is just a complete task. The interesting thing here is I can use this item for all of these items here. So when I run this task, they're going to come to this with items and change this variable here for every command that I'm doing. So they're going to install Postgre, libpq, and Python. Just with this line, make sure that everything is installed. That's it. Again, is a YAML file. You don't have to learn Python. You don't have to learn Ruby or any language to do this. This is some examples of tasks that I can ask. You can check if a directory exists, if a package should be installed or not installed. Make sure that a package is not there. Many other things that you want to do it. Plays and playbooks. As I said, plays is an order of tasks. You can have as many tasks as you want inside of a play. A playbook is an order of plays. You can have as many plays inside of a playbook. So here's just an example. I have two tasks inside of a play, inside of a playbook. I could have another play here inside of the same play. Okay, so the variables as this one, as I was saying, the host variable, is the variables that I define for the host. So I created these variables. And I have some places to put these variables. I can put these variables inside of the inventory file. I can create files just for variables. The important thing here is the variable that I created. We have facts. There are variables that Ansible reads from the controlled machine For example, this is a normal ad hoc command that I do with Ansible. So here, I'm calling Ansible for the inventory file that I specified, and I'm calling this module. This module is named setup for this host here, the PG01. Okay. So if you need to have any information about the machine that you are controlling, you can use this Ansible module setup. It's going to list all the information that has in that computer. I cut it because there is many information here. Two important things here. Everything that you send to Ansible is going to come back to you as a JSON file. Everything. So this is a JSON file. You can read and use this data the way you want. And any variable that you want, for example, Ansible IP address, IP4 and IP6, the architecture in this computer, the BIOS date, the boot image in this case, it's a virtual machine. Everything that you can use from this variable, you can use inside of the playbooks. It's really interesting, but this is just from the fact. It's a fact variable inside of the computer that that's being controlled. Another type of variable is dynamic variable. So it's variable that during the playbook, I can create that variable to hold some information that I need just during that time. For example, here, I'm going to put a little bigger. Okay, this is two tasks that I'm checking if the data directory for Postgres exists or not. I'm checking the stat of this directory in this task, and with this module stat is checking the path, my PG data directory, and putting all the information in this variable that I create with this command register. Every time I use register in a task, it's going to put all the answers from this module inside of this variable. So I create a dynamic variable. And then later, I use this variable, PG data directory, to check if I want to create a new cluster or not. For example, here I create a new cluster with the shell command from Postgres PG create cluster with all the extension to create a cluster. But first I check if the directory exists. If the directory doesn't exist, so it's false, stat exists is false, I don't have a data directory created, I can create a new one, no problem. If this says it's true, means that I have a data directory installed, I don't want to create another cluster at the top of my cluster that I already created, I'm going to lose all my data. So I can do this check using a dynamic variable. Okay? It's really, using dynamic variables during a playbook, something helps a lot. We have roles. Roles is something making a comparison with playbooks. Playbooks, you control plays. Roles, you control playbooks. Let's suppose you have a playbook that has many plays and gets a really long play. You can use the role to divide these plays in different plays. And this is going to be better manageable. It's going to avoid that you duplicate work and you start to think about functions instead of plays. For example, if you have a Nginx task to install the Nginx server, instead of call this Nginx, you can call this web server and create a role web server that you can repeat this for all the hosts that are going to install a web server. So instead of calling the playbook, we start calling the roles, is a web server role. Here, I don't think you can see, I'm going to put this a little. When you create a role, this is the structure of the directory. So this is a directory with the files and the folders that I have here. So I have 3 playbooks, site, web server, and full server is just 3 playbooks. I created a directory roles. Inside of this directory, I created 2 roles, common roles and web server roles. This directory inside of each role is the structure that Ansible creates for you. So it's always the same, it's controlled. If you have all your structure in your company with Ansible, anyone that knows how to work to Ansible, he can come here. He knows everything. Where is it? He don't have to try to find anything because it's a default configuration. I know that all my tasks are here. The template is inside here. Some files that I have to use are always inside of the files directory. And variables is always inside of the variables. So you have everything in the place that you want. You don't miss the controlling of, doesn't matter what's the side of your role, you can control here. The main point is, if you have a playbook that is simple, just keep as a playbook. If you have a playbook that tries to repeat itself and becomes a long playbook, try to use roles. If you read the Ansible page, they say, use roles, always use roles. Yeah, roles is really good. And actually to use Ansible Galaxy, that public repository, you can upload the roles. You cannot upload playbooks. And the role, this is just an example there, a task that I'm using for the web server. I'm applying the roles, the common roles and the web server roles. So when, instead of tasks, I say roles, Ansible comes here and he follows this structure, installing what is my common role. The same things for the web server. I hope we can see this during the demo. It's clear if you see later. I put here the two ways you can call Ansible. You can call Ansible as an ad hoc and just a normal command, or you can call a playbook. If you just do a simple command, okay, I'm just doing a normal shell command here. I'm calling M is to specify a module. The shell module, this is the attribute, so I'm just doing a df, a shell command in this host, and this host here. So I have the result. So if I want to check something, I don't use a playbook for doing that. It's just something that I want to check. I did for one computer, but imagine if you have to check this, I don't know, for 10 computers. You can put this inside of a report, so you just have this answer back. Another way of calling Ansible, you can call inside of a playbook. So to call an Ansible playbook, the command instead of Ansible is Ansible playbook, and I'm using the upgrade task, the upgrade playbook. This is going to check my host, is going to run to update the package. It's just a simple task, just update my system and gives me the answer. So for one host, it performs 2 tasks. Everything is green, so everything is fine. If it's yellow, it's doing the operation. If it's red, something is not good. So this is just a normal calling playbook. So there's 2 ways, or Ansible playbook. Okay, this is the Ansible and Postgres. I'm going to try to talk a little about as well as Postgres. Of course, I cannot go deeply in talking about Ansible, talking about Postgres, because it's too big comments that you have to have. So I'm going to talk why, the same way I choose Ansible, why can I choose Postgres? If I have different database, why Postgres? Postgres has a big community with a lot of developers and users and volunteers. Is a really nice and open source community. We have members all around the world, and as well, we're really nice people. We are open to everybody, even Pero is nice. The license is something really strong with Ansible. We have with Postgres. This is the full license. It's not just a part of the license. The Postgres license is this one. And this means that Ansible is completely open source. And in a way that you can use, and the important part is this one. You can do whatever you want with Postgres. Just make sure that you cannot say that you created Postgres. You have to put all the trademark and make sure that you say that is a Postgres solution. And this gives some guarantees to us. It's impossible today for some company, different from other database, come and buy Postgres. It's impossible. It's impossible to buy Postgres. Postgres is going to remain open source forever. It's a nice thing to have. It makes you sure that you are always going to have this open for you. It doesn't matter what happens. The development cycle of Postgres. Postgres, the first release was in 1996. We have the end of March now. We have the 9.5.2 release, and it's being released at least one major release a year. The evolution of the development is really fast. You have a development cycle alive and active with all new things. And some of the new things that we have in all the database, sometimes they come first to Postgres because it's open to anyone. If you want to develop some solution for Postgres, you are free to try. If this is accepted later and can be accepted, it's going to be part of Postgres. We have a vast documentation. You can have everything you want. Every time you try to read something, you're going to learn something. We don't have a problem with documentation. Sometimes we stop reading because it's too much. This is a good thing. We have a really good relationship with Python. Usually Python developers like Postgres as the same way as Postgres developers use Python. As us, we have solutions with second quad and developed with Python. We have a really good relationship. And at the end, Postgres is the most advanced open source solution with databases. And Ansible and Postgres. We have these modules specifically for Postgres. So we can use PostgreSDB to create or remove databases. Users, the same thing for users, you can create or remove users. And privilege for Postgres objects. We have these two other. This E means this is an extra module. You have core modules. This is inside of Ansible, and the Ansible development team take care of these modules. If there is an E, it's from the community. So the community takes care of this. So you have these two to install extensions and to install languages in Postgres. You can use them. You have the explanations how to use them. You can try to do some tests with them. Here is an example using Postgres modules. So here I created some variables to use in these hosts. And what I'm doing the tasks, I'm just ensuring the database is created, so I'm using the module PostgreDB and creating my DB name from this variable. That's my app. I'm going to call it to take for this variable. Then the other task is to create the user. So Postgres user create the inside of this DB, the name of the user, and the password that I define. I put the password here, but as I said, if you don't want anyone to see the password, you can use the vault and leave the password inside of the vault. It's controlled. And here at the end, it's cannot be seen. I'm using to make some privileges for this user. So I specify the user and the attributes that I want the user to have. Okay. Okay. The good thing is if you try to do some tests, the database and all the modules and playbooks that I'm using here, that I say that is in the GitHub, I used to do this cluster with Postgres. Everything here is installed with Ansible, and I didn't have time to connect because I know that this talk is going to be a little fast. I didn't have time to make the demo with this. But the intention here is to have a master, a standby, a barman, a backup server, and a web server, and it works. You can download the playbooks, change the playbooks if you don't want to make the cluster. You can change the host, do this in a virtual machine. Just go there and download the playbooks. You can check everything. And the intention of this is to make this project, this is PG Bramble, for educational purpose. So you can try to learn Postgres or try to do some demonstrations. And it works just one thing. Everybody, when they see this, they ask two things. If I'm sharing the resources in this cluster, not this one I'm not sharing, it's just separated servers as a master in one data center, and I stand by in another data center. I'm going to do another one with PostgreSQL that you can share all the resources. And if I'm doing some business with this, no, this actually is just for educational purposes. If you want to do some business with Raspberry in Postgres, please do and tell me. This one I'm just doing for educational purpose. What's the intention? As I said, I wanted to have a database server, replication as my high availability solution, a backup server with Barman for the disaster recovery, our web server, everything automated with Ansible. This is the diagram of the project. So if you download the playbooks, we are going to check the host name and the IPs. You can read, and if you read the IAM file, you're going to understand everything. This is the main presentation. The only part here is these parts, when they talk to each other, is PostgreSQL technology and solutions that the intention to create this cluster is to have application for my web server doing reading and writing for in my master. In my standby, I can share the chart of reading, so I can do readings with my web application in my standby. At the same time, I can do backup and archiving. I don't have time to explain what's the WAL in PostgreSQL WAL files, but we make backups and archiving in the Barman server, and you can recover get this WAL in the standby. It's a really nice solution, and for surprise of everybody, it works here in the Raspberry. It's nice. This is some references, and thank you. I don't know if I have time to just show the... Okay, good. So, let's see. I created these two virtual machines at the name of PG01 and PG02. Okay, this is just a virtual machine created. I don't have anything installed in this machine. If I use this command, actually not this one, this is a normal ad hoc Ansible command. I'm not doing a playbook here, just a normal command. What I'm doing with this command, I'm going to send this, in this group of database, in this database group I have PG01 and PG02, the two machines that I have here, is going to check the inventory file, the module is this shell, and the argument is going to do just a df on these two virtual machines. It works. It's fast because I did this before. Usually if you do this the first time, it takes a little to read the computer, so the second time everything is already, the information is already there, so it just goes faster. But I have the DFs for the two machines here. The files, if you check what we have here, of course I have the Vagrant file, the Ansible configuration file, in my inventory file, the PostgreSQL playbook. This PostgreSQL playbook uses a role that is inside of my directory roles. So it's going to install PostgreSQL according to the role. Inside of the directory roles, I have the PostgreSQL role. If I check what I have inside of my PostgreSQL role, I have that directory structure I showed you before. The main one, the first file that Ansible is going to try to check is the one that is inside of the task, because the task is the main thing. So it's going to check inside of task. The first file is the main file. So every time we send Ansible playbook, a playbook comes inside of this directory and call this main file. What I have inside of this main file? I just have an include of all the other playbooks. So I have in the order that I want them to happen. So it's a declarative solution, but at the same time give you some kind of sequence. It's going to follow the sequence I'm telling. So I'm going to call the other configure PGDG, configure PostgreSQL. It's going to call all of these playbooks and run the playbooks in the order I want. So this is usually how the playbook, the role works. And if they need any variable, is going to take inside of the other file. In case the variables inside of the default files or templates that I use, is everything inside of those folders. How can I call this? That's it. Just to remember, I'm in this folder, my main folder. So I'm calling Ansible Playbook with my playbook Postgres, that's this one, is going inside of the row and do the playbook. So just let's see if it's going to work. Oh, callsafe is installed, Ansible is going to call callsafe. You can take this out in the Ansible configuration. Sometimes can be annoying. So it's doing everything, so it's checking my host. It has changed what I did, that task is supposed to include. So it's doing the Postgres playbook and change it because it's yellow. All the include, it's a kind of blue, and it's saying step by step. And you can check the task that's being done. Install Postgres, restart Postgres, create the database, create the users, and it's done. If I go inside of my computer, my virtual machine now, so I have Postgres installed, the user is installed. I'm inside of Postgres, and if I check, I have the normal tables that Postgres installed, Postgres and template 0 and template 1, but I have this table here, this database, Python 7, that I created now for Python. If I check the user as well, I have the normal Postgres user, and I have the Python user that was created calling that playbook. So Postgres is installed, a database created, the user created the privileges I want, everything for inside the playbook. Just one last thing. For example, the create database. Just to confirm, the create database, this is the playbook Postgres to create the database. I'm using the service to start Postgres. So this is the module, the name of the service I want to start, in case Postgres, and the state that I want to be started. And of course, become is to become some user. In this case, I want to become root. And then I use the Postgres user module to install this user with the password I want. The same thing for all the other things. The encoding for the database, some extensions that I want to install. I can install some extensions. This is just one of the playbooks. As I said, this is normal YAM file. I'm not using Python in a way that programming in Python. Just before we finish, there is something here that I did that's not optimized, for example. Like this. Every time I use a DB, I'm writing Python 7, every time. What can I do? I can create a variable and put this name inside of the variable and start to use a row in a clever way. This works, but it's not optimized. But it works. I think I'm done. Questions? Domande?
Italiano.
Anche in italiano, sì. Domande va bene in italiano.
Domande?
Riguardo alle estensioni di Postgres, non ho capito bene come funziona la cosa, nel senso che io se voglio installare un'estensione, in particolare nel mio caso GIS, come faccio a, diciamo, includerla in Ansible?
Good question. The thing is, all the extension for Postgres, we can install the extension normally as install any Postgres extension. But the point to use Ansible is the use of the module. That's the module Postgres extension. This module is everything, is the only part actually that there is a code But if I don't create a module, I don't want to know what's inside of this module, but it's code inside there. When I call this module, I just say the things that this module actually needs, and the only thing that this module needs is the name of the extension that I wanted to install. Inside of the playbook, that's it. So I say the module, so the name of the module is supposed to be extension. The name of the extension I want you to install, in this case is PG stat statement, that's extension for Postgres. I just say the name, and the database where I want that extension to be installed. That's it. The same thing here, I'm installing another extension that's Postgres for data warehouse. Put the name of the extension and install there. If you want to check, and this is really interesting, if you want to check how this works inside, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take the module, the Postgres extension module, open this file, and try to do how the person who creates this module has make the programming to this module to work. That is a kind of curiosity, or maybe to learn how to create my module. But as a user for a playbook, I don't have to know how this module works. I know that I put the name of the extension. When it's done, the extension is being installed there. That's it. So it's more to know, to be worried about the which what. The extension is going to be installed. I don't care about how it's going to be installed. So this is the way that the playbook works. It's a clever solution.
Ok, altre domande?
In inglese.
Okay.
No.
I,
Portuguese.
I would like to know how much cost the PG Bramble thing.
Okay. This varies because this we have a Raspberry 2, and the last one here is a Raspberry 1, because I did this the end of last year, so we didn't have Raspberry 3. Now, if I want to do one, I'm going to do a Raspberry 3. I hope I'm going to do one. For everything that is here, everything, I spend 260 euros, I think. Some 200, yeah, it's around that. It depends where you buy, because sometimes you can have some discounts. Sometimes, like Raspberry 3, when was released, the price was 35 euros, but you just buy for 50 euros. So it's going to less than 300 euros with 4, for sure. You can just buy 2 and do it, but it's not expensive if you think about it.
Ok, altre domande? Bene, grazie Ruben.
Grazie. Thank you.